So I'm sure by now we are all aware that Donald Trump is the Time Person of the Year. Congratulations. And I don't want you to think that this is me saying anything definitive. I'm not. I am letting you guys know a way to consider. And so it's really interesting because what we know about the Bible is that sometime in the future there is going to be an Antichrist, or the son of perdition, or the lawless one, whatever you would like to refer to him as. He is going to rise up and he is going to be widely accepted by the Jewish people. And so that's very fascinating. And so when you consider that and you couple all of the things together that Mr. Trump has done, I think it's really remarkable. It's something at least to pay attention to, because what better way to get in with the Jewish people than to help them out in every way that you possibly can. And so here's another example of that, because here it says U.S. President-elect Donald Trump weighing options for stopping Iran from being able to build a nuclear weapon, including the possibility of preemptive airstrikes. So here we are. It is December 13th, 2024. And before he is in office, he's considering a preemptive strike in Iran, which is very provocative. That's really something to pay attention to. But if, I want you to view this from a Jewish mindset, like the Bible. We need to remember that the Bible is a Jewish book. We worship as Gentiles a Jewish God. And so that's really important to remember as you try to unpack things. It's also good to remember that you and I, as born-again believers, if you are a born-again believer, which I hope you are, we are not in the darkness. We are in the light, and that day is not going to be surprising. So when you read that in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, what I think is good to take away from that, or what Paul is telling the church in Thessalonica, I think it's good to remember that he's basically telling us that we're not going to be caught off guard when the time comes. And so right now, where everybody's paying attention, everybody's hyper aware of what's going on, and we're seeing these things unfold in front of our eyes. And then you see things like this, preemptive airstrikes. So I want you to consider from the Jewish perspective, if you lived over there and you are a lost Jewish person, and you realize that over here in America, big bad America, like we're over here like, oh man, throwing our weight around, superpower, whatever. I think it's really interesting coming from a Jewish point of view. You're now looking at Trump as like, hey, can you help us out? Hey, can you help us out? And, there's all kinds of other things that like throw on this pile, like the coin, Trump being compared to Cyrus. They built a bridge after him, all kinds of things, the crown, the list goes on and on. But I just want you to understand that at some point in the future, there is going to be an Antichrist that's going to rise up. And when you allow that to sink in, you're like, well, who's he going to be like? Who is it? Are we going to be here for that? I don't think we will be. That's my opinion. I think the rapture will occur before then, but I want you just to recognize the unbelievable coincidences of a really, really strong candidate for somebody like that. Now, people are going to say something along the lines of, no, he's not going to be a Gentile, he's going to be a Jew. And then there's the people who are saying, no, he's going to be a Jew, not a Gentile. It's a divided kind of response or conversation to really have. But I personally believe that he is going to be a Gentile. One reason is because the Bible refers to him as the Assyrian. Now, the Assyrian, which is mentioned or referenced multiple times in the book of Isaiah, is something that we need to be mindful of. But the Assyrian is going to rise up, and that's just fascinating to really allow to sink in. Like, holy smokes, the Assyrian, who's this guy? But also in the book of Daniel chapter 7, it talks about how there is going to be somebody that's rising up out of the sea. Now, if you read Daniel chapter 7, you'll see that person that is rising out of the sea is, it's the beast, the fourth beast that Daniel sees in Daniel chapter 7. Now, what I want you to focus on is the sea. What is the sea a picture of? And so when you start unpacking the sea and what the sea represents, the sea seems to represent Gentiles. So a Gentile, he's going to rise up out of the Gentile nations. And so if he's rising up out of the Gentile nations, because, all the beasts before that, the first beast in Daniel chapter 7 was the lion, the second one was the bear, the third one was the leopard. All of those are Gentile nations, because that falls into the whole frame of the times of the Gentiles that is referenced by Luke chapter 21. And so it's just really interesting to see that this fourth beast is going to rise up out of the Gentile nations. And so when you couple that with what we were just talking about, I think it's really fascinating to think about this beast rising up out of the sea. And if this beast rises up out of the Gentile sea, well, that makes a lot more sense, because the times of the Gentiles in Luke chapter 21 that Jesus mentions is going to be concluded by the Antichrist. So if the times of the Gentiles, it began with Nebuchadnezzar, when Nebuchadnezzar took over Babylon, it's going to end with the Antichrist. If all of that is encapsulated by the times of the Gentiles, it seems to make the most sense that this Antichrist, whoever he will be, is going to be Gentile. And so that's something to pay attention to. Also, while that's happening, you have more airstrikes going on over in Damascus, which is definitely something to pay attention to. This happened today, or this morning, which today is, again, December 13th, 2024. Fascinating stuff taking place. Damascus is now on the radar of every lost person's it's on every lost person's radar. And so people who don't know Jesus as the Lord and Savior now are all of a sudden paying attention to Damascus. And they're like, hey, what's going on over in Damascus? And so this could be priming or tenderizing the hearts and minds of people who are lost, because now they're paying attention to prophecy. And now if they see Damascus sometime in the future being destroyed, perhaps that could allow that individual to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe the Bible is true, and maybe Jesus is the Son of God. And then on top of that, we also have Taiwan, which has 16 Chinese warships around the island. We're just seeing wars and rumors of wars popping off left and right. It is remarkable. And then here we have Russia saying that Donald Trump is a man of talent and believes he has a good chance of resolving the war in Ukraine. That is rather interesting. I would agree with him. And while all this is going on, we have technology to consider at the same time. So you have on the left, and at least in my opinion, represents technology that was yesterday. And then you have on the right side of the screen, you have technology that represents today. It is unbelievable. Technology is doubling and tripling and quadrupling. It is just exponential at this point, and that is something to be mindful of. Why? Because when you start diving in and you look at these things that involve the end times, one of the things that people have always said is that they've said, people have been saying it's the end times for the longest time, and you know what? You're right. People have been saying that, but here is what I would like to propose to you to consider. We know that sometime in the future there's going to be the mark of the beast. And so what I need you to understand is that people have been saying it's the end days forever, which, I agree with. But what makes our day today here in 2024, the close of 2024, so unique is technology. Why? Because technology now, if we were to rewind 50 years ago, you could not basically monitor whether or not somebody is buying or selling. And because of the mark of the beast, even if it existed, one person couldn't control whether or not somebody, hey, don't buy that, hey, don't sell that. But now in our world today, when you throw technology into the conversation, now it's like a huge puzzle piece that solves a lot of mysteries that were once upon a time, back in different generations before you and I, that people were wondering about. Because before, people were like, how in the world is this dude who apparently is gonna be this massive world leader, how is he going to control these people whether or not they buy or sell? Well, today it makes sense, because now technology, we're being monitored on every level that we are not even aware of. It is frightening, and that technology is increasing and increasing and increasing. It's being ramped up. And so I just want you guys to just pay attention to this kind of stuff, because I think it's very important to. And all of these things are uploaded onto YouTube. If you're looking for a verse-by-verse Bible study, I would encourage you to go check ours out. And this verse by verse Bible study that we do, the channel is called ITZ_sheesh, and if you just type that in on YouTube, you'll find it. But we have, we're going through Revelation 2024. I'm trying to break it up, but it's really good. And so if you're trying to understand more about the Bible, I would encourage you to dive into it, because in a verse by verse manner, that's the best way to learn. Hope this helps, guys. Thanks.